Reddit is easily one of my favorite places to discuss manga, and the other day I got kind of curious to see what the most discussed manga are there. So, I enlisted the help of my girlfriend, who's way better at coding than I am, to write some code that went through the threads in the top tab under r/manga for all time. I had a list of several hundred manga titles, and each time a thread had words that matched a title in the list, the number of comments in that thread was added to the total for that series. Also, for series that held alternate names, both were included in the list, and the totals were added together. The program ran through the first 1,000 threads, which is the limit that Reddit lets you access. Oh, and yes, I know there's some limitations to this method, such as not including discussions of manga on Reddit outside of r/manga, not including results if they were misspelt, and the fact that this list will vary as a function of time. Anyways, the reason I'm talking about this is because the results are pretty interesting. While some results are very predictable, there were also a number of series that I wasn't familiar with that were quite high up on the list. So, without any further ado, let me present Reddit's top 20 most discussed manga. Coming in at number 20, we have Real Life, a story about a 27-year-old NEET who, instead of getting sent to a fantasy world, as is common for NEETs these days, gets given a pill that makes him look younger and is sent back to high school. The idea is, going back to high school will cure him of his NEETness, because as everyone knows, Japanese high schools are magical places. I happen to love this series, both for its comedy and its romance, and I'm very happy to see it make this list. At number 19, we have Ahiran-san wa Hakara ne, marking the first story on the list I'd never heard of before starting this project. It's about a chibi girl who has no sense of personal space and her relationship with the guy who sits next to her in school. The story is overloaded with cuteness and has no real plot. Think of it as what would happen if Kana from Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid was going to high school and was a lot more klutzy. If you feel like you're not getting your daily dose of fluff, check this series out. In contrast with the last two series on the list, that were slightly less well known, the next one up is Attack on Titan, or Shingeki no Kyojin. It's actually kind of surprising how low it is on the list considering its popularity with the anime community. I kind of figure it's because it's a monthly manga, so there's just less content to talk about on a regular basis. For anyone who's been living in a hole and hasn't heard of this series, it's about a world where giant naked people with no genitals go around munching on regular-sized people. Yeah, that's a pretty good description. Following one well-known series with another, we have Naruto, the story of a loudmouth boy's quest to become the ninja president. Kind of interesting to see that this is the lowest of the big three shonen titles. I figured it'd be ahead of Bleach. But apparently, at least on Reddit, Shinigami are more popular than Shinobi. Now, for another surprise entry on the list, we have Talentless Nana, a series that at the time of this recording only has 11 chapters translated into English, but seems to have generated a remarkable amount of buzz. Part of this is probably because it's being scanlated by Helvetica Scans, who are very active on Reddit and post links to their work regularly. You'll see a couple more of the series they're working on later down the list. Anyways, Talentless Nana is set in a school on an isolated island, with a bunch of superpowered kids. There's some really interesting plot twists, so I won't say much more to avoid spoilers, but make sure if you pick it up, you read right until the end of chapter 1 before deciding whether to drop it or not. Next up, we have Hiatus x Hiatus, also known as Hunter x Hunter, a great action shonen series that would probably be way higher up on the list if it had anything remotely resembling a regular release schedule. For those who are unfamiliar with it, Hunter x Hunter has two stories. One of a young boy trying to find his father and become a hunter, where hunters are magical martial artists / archaeologists / explorers. And the other story is of an author who spent more time on break than he has writing due to health problems. Personally, I prefer the first story to the second one. In at number 14, we have the story of a big man with a big sword hacking things. Berserk. Apparently it's supposed to be good, but I never got that into it myself. I look forward to seeing explanations of why I should love Berserk in the comments section below. Bleach is the story of a boy who obtains the powers of a Soul Reaper. and the substance you'll probably want to be drinking if you keep reading this series too long. Okay, that's probably a bit harsh, but I'm just going to pretend this series ended after the Arrancar arc, because the first part of this story is genuinely good. If it had kept up its quality, I'm pretty sure it would have been way higher on this list. Following all the older action shonen series, the next entry on the list is the new rising star of the genre, Boku no Hero Academia, the story of a boy who wants to be a hero. Don't you just love stories with easily summarized premises? Anyways, this is another series, like Attack on Titan, that I expected to see much higher up on the list, especially considering its hugely successful anime adaptation. But it's results like this that I think make this list interesting. At number 11, we have another Helvetica Scans project, at least until recently. Grande Blue, a story that is in theory about a guy going to university for engineering and joining the diving club, and in practice seems to be about drinking too much, stripping too much, and doing a lot of other really stupid shit. Being the boring type of person who spent most of my time studying in undergrad and preferred books to parties, I really can't relate to this series. If you're slightly less introverted than I am, though, you'll probably get something out of it. According to Wikipedia, food porn is
a glamorized, spectacular visual presentation of cooking or eating,
which pretty much describes the next series on the list, Shogeki no Soma, or Food Wars. Notably, though, this series takes things one step further, by also having a glamorized, spectacular visual presentation of the human body, too. Because when people eat here, they have all their clothes fly off. I hadn't read this series before its appearance on this list, and I'm not quite sure what to make of it. It does leave me both aroused and hungry though, so I guess I can understand its popularity. Going from things that make me hungry to something that makes me lose all appetite, we have Tokyo Ghoul and its sequel series Tokyo Ghoul Re. Many series have made vampires sexy, and this series does the same thing for ghouls, at least for some of them. Others are fabulous, and many are downright horrifying. This is a pretty solid series, and it's right about where I expect it to be on this list. Shonen Jump has a couple pretty great up-and-coming series, and one of them, The Promised Neverland, makes 8th place on this list. It's easily one of the most original series I've read in ages, and as long as it maintains its quality, I fully expect it will become hugely popular. It starts off with a nice, peaceful orphanage with happy kids and a caring mother. But not all is as it seems. The plot is kind of hard to describe without spoilers, but let's just say it starts with a similar air of suspense and a battle of wits comparable to Death Note. Conveniently, another rising star of Shonen Jump is right after on the list. Dr. Stone takes place in a world where everyone on Earth gets petrified. After a couple of thousand years, our protagonists break out of petrification, manage to figure out how to remove petrification from other people too, and start trying to restore civilization. Unfortunately, one of the first people they free from Stone is psychotic and also insanely strong. A bad combination. Similarly to Neverland, this series has a lot of potential, and I highly recommend it. Actually, number 6 on the list, We Cant Study, is a new Shonen Jump title too. It's not quite as original as the others though. In order to get a scholarship for himself, our protagonist is told he has to tutor several single-topic geniuses in their worst subject. Oh, and would you look at that? All the geniuses just so happen to be beautiful girls. And now, they look like they might be falling for Protag-kun. What will happen next? I could never guess. So yeah, We Cant Study is a pretty cute harem series, but it doesn't really do anything new. A guy defeats everyone in one punch. It's pretty funny. It's called One Punch Man. Next. After all those well-known series, number 4 goes back to another one I'd never heard of before. Kaguya Wants to Be Confessed To. A series about two people who quite like each other, but refuse to be straightforward about it, instead coming up with a load of convoluted schemes to make one another confess. Incidentally, if one of them did confess, everything would work out just fine, so it's one of those just talk to each other like regular human beings, please rom-coms. Oh, and apparently lots of things are quite cute. In at number 3, we have One Piece, firmly setting the order that pirates greater than superheroes, greater than Shinigami, greater than ninja. Anyways, given the popularity of this series, I was surprised not to see it higher on the list. I kind of expected it to be at rank 1. Well, let's look at the 2 series that surpassed it. So, what are the glorious series whose popularity surpasses even One Piece on Reddit? Well, one of them is Musso Telepathy, a story about a girl who can read minds, and the guy who has a crush on her. As most guys can probably attest, our thoughts aren't always the purest, and that's the main source of entertainment at the start of the story. But, while staying hilarious throughout, it also develops a great plot and the best friend character ever written. I highly recommend this series to absolutely everyone. Oh yeah, and it's also another Helvetica Scans project. Those guys are truly awesome. Up until recently, this series has been updating daily, but currently it's on hiatus, so its ranking may have dropped by the time this video is actually uploaded. Finally, in first place, Tomo-chan wa Onoko, or as it's called in English, Tomo-chan is a girl. So, what's this series about, and why is it at the top of the list? Well, Tomo-chan, similar to Musso Telepathy and Kaguya, is another rom-com, which apparently are really popular with the Reddit crowd. This story is about Tomo, a high schooler who's a girl, as the title says, but has a hard time convincing her best friend / crush Jun to actually treat her like one. The characters in the series are well developed and the comedy is well done, but I think the real reason the series is so popular on Reddit is similar to Musso Telepathy, it's released daily. It's pretty nice to be able to see a story advance every day, and it makes it much easier to develop a community around it. Incidentally, I should also mention that I do highly recommend this series. Anyways, with that, I'm done the list of the 20 most discussed manga on Reddit. To summarize, action shonen is still pretty popular on Reddit, but rom-coms reign supreme. And in my humble opinion, Redditors have pretty good taste. Many thanks to all the Scanlation groups who have made reading all these series possible. Also, thank you dear viewers for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers!